What are the odds you'd see me again so soon?
Oddworld, a game series filled with creepy creatures, perplexing puzzles, and randomly rude loading screens.
Well, that's just downright unfriendly.
I don't know why this is a theme, but it really fits the vibe. There's certainly nothing friendly about this world. Yeah, this game is extremely unforgiving, but that's sort of the appeal. If you want to liberate your friends from this concentration camp, concentration is key.
But as an Oddworld inhabitant yourself, odds are you're gonna be alright. Right? You!
In reality, your odds of survival are slimmer than Abe himself. At first glance, this looks to be a simple side-scroller, but no, this is a very elaborate puzzle game that requires the utmost precision and patience. The game opens at Rupture Farms, a meat processing plant led by Moloch the Glutton, where we find the eponymous Abe is being held captive after having crossed him.
My whole life changed in just one day.
The game's story is then told in flashback, as Abe recounts a fateful night when he was working late. You see, Abe and his fellow Mudokons are enslaved here. Rupture Farms used to make meat munchies, before the meaties became extinct, but they continued to make paramite pies and scrab cakes.
How we'd make new and tasty, I was still to find. The truth, it turned out. Now that would blow my mind.
Abe overhears a meeting of the Gluckons. Since profits are plummeting, they decide to resort to slaughtering their Mudokon workers to make Mudokon pops. Although considering the fact that the Mudokons apparently comprise all of his employees, I can only imagine this will make things worse for Moloch in the long run.
Seems to me he's a glutton for punishment.
Regardless of how ineffective this plan may prove to be, it goes without saying that we need to help Abe escape and free his people.
I just had to escape. I just had to be free. And I didn't even know I had a destiny. So, get me out of here!
One of the game's most innovative features is game speak,
Hello.
which you use to get Mudokons to follow you or wait for further instructions.
Wait. Okay.
To get their attention, you need to press L1 and triangle.
Hello. Hello.
Then, to get them to follow, you need to press L1 and square.
Follow me. Okay.
L1 and X makes Abe tell them to wait.
Wait. Okay.
Meaning they'll remain in place and eventually start scrubbing the floor. You'll realize we're leaving here, right? You don't have to keep cleaning!
At this rate, you're gonna make that spot on the floor a slip hazard, and Lord knows you're already clumsy as f***.
In order to rescue Mudokons, you need to chant near birds to open portals. Any nearby Mudokons on the same screen will then sprint for freedom. Freedom! The game claims you need to hold L1 and L2 to chant. But it seems as though you can hold any combination of two L and R shoulder buttons. I instinctively use L2 and R2 for some reason. It just feels right to me. L1 and circle simply makes Abe let out an angry growl, which isn't necessary, although it's there if you want to vent.
Believe me, you'll probably want to vent.
Wait. Oops.
You can run by holding R1, and quietly sneak by holding R2. Whatever you choose to do, any following friends will copy you. The sneak option is very useful if there happens to be a sleeping Slig in the room. Sligs are basically Moloch's henchmen. They move around on mechanical legs and are not afraid to open fire when they see you. You can also perform a roll move, either by crouching to the ground and moving left or right, or by holding X while running if you're in a hurry. It always amuses me that, if you run and hit a wall by mistake, Abe will automatically get angry at it. It's like he's angry at his own clumsiness and incompetence.
Or, my clumsiness and incompetence, I guess.
I appreciate that they added some humour to the game speak. For example, if you say hello to a Mudokon when there's a Slig nearby, sometimes the Slig will also mindlessly respond with a cheerful greeting.
Hello. Hi. Hello.
You pillock. From the get-go, you'll quickly come to realise that this game trolls you. I wonder what this lever does.
Oops.
Damn it!
Abe and his Mudokon friends are so frustratingly slow to respond.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, this isn't really a complaint, as it's clearly intentional and all part of the challenge, but there are a fair amount of puzzles that need to be timed just right, and Abe's big feet are just so bloody clumsy.
If you don't exercise precision, you're quite literally dead meat.
It's very easy to fail, which wouldn't be so irritating if you weren't sent back to the last checkpoint. Sometimes this means having to do some tasks over and over until you get it just right. And there's no way of knowing where a checkpoint triggers. This is something they rectified in the new and tasty remake. But I don't know, I find the checkpoint activating in the remake to be detrimental to the atmosphere. It makes it feel a little regimented, and the safety net is just too obvious. Not knowing where the checkpoints are can be frustrating, but also adds to the intensity of it all. Don't get me wrong, it was a relief when they added the quick save feature in the sequel Abe's Exodus, essentially allowing you to make your own checkpoints. But that game's puzzles tend to be more elaborate. And the checkpoints here aren't as infrequent as some players make out. You just need a hell of a lot of patience.
Oops.
Preventing these guys from getting ground up is, well, a real grind.
Not only is Abe's chant used for opening portals, but you can also possess sligs. This is a really cool feature, and requires you to memorize another character's game speak. When the slig is possessed, you can fire your gun with circle. And should nobody suspect anything untoward, you're able to terminate fellow sligs quite easily.
Why, whatever possessed him to do that?
There are times when some of the more alert sligs will catch on, and shoot you as soon as they see you. So it's advisable to keep your wits about you.
Don't let this possession malarkey go to your head, so to speak.
Sometimes you may have to hold L2 and circle to get the Mudokons to duck before you open fire. When done possessing them, holding down the L and R buttons again will make Abe explode their heads from the inside.
Sorta like this. Only a lot more gruesome. He's a sadistic little bastard, ain't he?
You know, considering Mudokons have this power, it's a wonder they're so subservient. How the hell were you enslaved? Seriously.
I don't know.
By the way, pressing L2 and square makes Abe laugh. And I never use this. I only ever hear Abe laugh after having brutally murdered a slig. Otherwise, this is a totally pointless feature. Sometimes there'll be security drones around, preventing you from possessing sligs on the same screen. This means you'll either have to lure them onto another screen, or find another way to pass them. Sometimes you'll have to blow up the security using grenades. Indeed, Abe can pick up small projectiles, such as grenades, rocks, and scraps of meat. He can retrieve these either by standing over them and then crouching, or by crouching beside them and pressing square. You need to hold circle to aim, but be careful not to hold a grenade much longer than 5 seconds, or your friends will have a big Mudokon mess to clean up. Not only are there mines lying around, but there are also bombs you need to deactivate by pressing them when the light pattern shows green. If you press it on a red light, Mudokon go boom! Sometimes you may need to activate one of these bombs to take care of a slig. But first you need to make sure your friends are out of harm's way, or
Well, you get the point.
While merely escaping Rupture Farms may seem challenging enough for first timers, there are actually many easily missable Mudokons here. This game is full of intricate secrets and obscured hidden passages. Sometimes there may be objects in the foreground blocking your view, and sometimes what looks like a bottomless pit might actually be a hidden room.
Of course, it also might not be. Yeah, sorry, Abe.
Most first-timers will likely be very surprised when they reach the latter stages, and realise they're missing a good many Mudokons. That said, there are clues towards the beginning that not all of your friends are in plain sight. Whether you decide to try and save them all is up to you, but how many Mudokons you find throughout the game dictates the ending you'll receive, so it's advisable to try your hardest.
Follow me. Okay.
As you can already tell, this game adopts a very dark tone, and I love it. I actually think it's a shame that subsequent releases lean more so into comedy. Abe's Exodus has its fair share of darkness too, but it overall adopts a lighter tone compared to the first installment.
Follow me. Okay.
I think part of what makes this game so eerie and disturbing is that it's not entirely unrealistic. Put simply, the themes of this game are very pro-eco and anti-capitalist, which could not be more relevant today. It mirrors reality and therefore has a big impact. The atmosphere of Rupture Farms is fittingly oppressive, but once you progress to the stockyards, it gets even creepier. Here you encounter penned scrabs, silhouetted in the darkness and prowling menacingly. There are also lasers that move back and forth to detect trespassers. Whenever a laser passes by you, you need to stand completely still so as not to trigger an alarm.
Oops.
It's genuinely nail-biting stuff. Part of me wonders whether the eerie nature of this game was a fluke. Not only does Exodus not quite capture the same aesthetic, but in my opinion the new and tasty remake is also lacking in this regard. While I want to make it clear that the remake certainly isn't a bad game, the atmosphere isn't quite the same. One thing I really love about the stockyards is the use of fireflies. When you chant near them, they slowly spell out messages to guide you. It's cool and creepy. Meanwhile, in the remake, the firefly messages appear more digital looking. It kinda reminds me of a digital clock. It just doesn't convey the same vibe. Also, as charming as these are, sometimes they do point out the obvious. Do not forget your rock. Well, yeah, I wasn't planning to. Duh.
Yeah, I figured that out for myself, thanks. No need to literally spell it out.
Some may consider it a drawback that you can only speak to one Mudokon at a time.
Hello. Hello, follow me. Okay.
Now, this can be very time-consuming, and this is something that was alleviated in the sequel Abe's Exodus, with the introduction of the Olia feature.
Follow you. Hello, follow me. Okay.
That said, I feel the puzzles in this game take this hindrance into account. It feels purposeful. There are times when gathering a group of Mudokons would diminish the challenge. Not to mention the fact that there are many occasions when trying to guide just one Mudokon past some machinery feels like an arduous task.
Yipe! He got through that by the skin of his loincloth.
One thing that kinda gets to me is that you might have the attention of one Mudokon but want to speak to another one, but you have to wait for the first one to stop paying attention and start scrubbing the floor, else you'll just keep talking to the same guy repeatedly.
What? Not you! The other guy! Man, they're so stupid. Ugh. Does this race really need saving? I think this is just natural selection at this point.
The Stockyards contains what I regard as one of the worst secret areas.
Wait.
Here you need to navigate between the upper and lower levels, and move the Mudokons away from the bomb. Then you need to activate it so it blows up the slig. It's insanely hard to pull off as the two sligs' movements don't always align. Sometimes I've found that the slig on the lower level can glitch out and fall into the abyss. But if you're playing it properly, avoiding both sligs can be tricky. To make matters worse, you need to pass the next section of the stockyards before reaching a checkpoint. So if you screw this part up, you have to do this all over again.
It really is a slog to get through. Speaking of which...
At the stockyards, we're also introduced to the slogs. These are vicious dog-like creatures, and they are nasty things. As soon as they see you, they'll chase you down. Abe can only get rid of them if there's a hazard nearby. But if you manage to possess a nearby slig, you can use the slig's game speak to nullify them. Not only that, but you can also use slogs to turn on other sligs. There are also several occasions when you'll need to use a slig to kill a group of slogs en masse when they emerge from the kennels. This can be tricky, especially when they emerge from two separate kennels either side of you.
The slogs can indeed be hard work. If you don't want the slogs at your guts, you're gonna have to slog your guts out.
I had just got past those slugs when the strangest thing I saw. A big moon was before me, and its face was my paw.
After escaping the slogs, we encounter Abe's moon. We then meet the Big Face, who informs Abe that his quest is to rescue the other Mudokons from Rupture Farms. In order to do this, we need to harness the power of the Shrykull, a power that can only be bestowed onto us after having faced the trials of Paramonia and Scrabania, home of the creatures Rupture Farms turns into processed food.
And they live in the temples, and that's where they still nest. And facing these creatures That was my test.
One thing that substantially adds to the game's charm is its use of rhyme. Most of the narrative is conveyed through rhyme during the cutscenes, not to mention some of the readable information points, and it really helps to reinforce the game's fable-like aesthetic. In my opinion, this is something Abe's Exodus sorely lacks. They completely did away with the rhyming theme, and as such it lacks the same kind of mystique.
I can't believe it.
In fact, the atmosphere in general is more impactful in this first installment. Abe's voice alone is unsettling enough.
Ah! He's the good guy in this game?
I don't want to talk about Exodus too much in this video, as I feel it's worthy of a review in its own right, but resisting drawing comparisons is hard considering how similar they are. If I were to summarise my feelings about the sequel on a fundamental level, it's that, while it certainly showcases huge improvements on the gameplay, it lacks the conciseness, eeriness, and moral clarity of its predecessor.
Sorry. Okay.
While Exodus tackles the same themes, Oddysee hits the nail on the head when it comes to delivering a powerful message of corporate greed. The concept of slaughtering wildlife for profits is a relatable concept, and that's why it works. The sequel's plot involves some ideas that are a little out there by comparison. Harvesting Mudokon bones and tears for brew just doesn't have the same impact in my opinion, especially when it comes to the Scrabs and Paramites. Their involvement in Oddysee makes sense narratively, but in Exodus, facing them again feels arbitrary. Don't get me wrong, if all you care about is the gameplay itself, I can completely appreciate why you may argue the case that Exodus is the better game, but as one contained moral story, I think this first installment is much more effective. We then have a moment's respite in Monsaic Lines, holy ground of the Mudokons, and a place where you can get your second wind.
That was a figure of speech, buddy.
The ambience is much more serene than anything we've encountered thus far, and feels like something of a safe haven.
Well, safer.
One thing I find fairly interesting is that this area feels like a late tutorial, when we've already gotten to grips with most of the controls. I actually like this though, as it helps accentuate the notion that equilibrium has been disturbed. As though this is supposed to be your starting location, but due to having been enslaved, your reality has been distorted. There is some new interesting stuff to take in though. You can practice running and jumping into wells, which is something you'll need to be accustomed to. I have to say that no matter how much I've played this game, I still tend to screw up jumping into a well while running, in spite of how simple it is. I usually prefer to slow down moments before reaching the well to play it safe, as it's easier than you'd think to overshoot the well. While journeying through Monsaic, we also come across some Mudokon natives, who make you repeat melodies to continue. This is the other aspect of GameSpeak, and it's unique to this game. Holding L2 and pressing triangle or X will make Abe perform whistles, while L2 and circle makes him, fart.
Okay.
I guess it's lucky Abe can fart on cue.
I guess that makes him a wind instrument. Well, at least Abe found that funny.
While here, we're also introduced to the bell song. Here you need to find and learn a melody, all while avoiding the bees.
Bees, huh? Where's Gopher when you need him?
Luckily, the swarm turns its attention to other Mudokons that you pass, so they're not too much trouble. Yeah, sorry about that, buddy. I hope in time you'll come to forgive me. Once you've listened to the song, locating the bells will allow you to possess them. Abe will then repeat the melody and you can continue onwards. The bells become a very important feature a little later on, so there's a reason this is here. Shortly after this, we find our way is blocked by sligs and explosives. The only option is to open the routes to Paramonia and Scrabania, and you can access them in the order you like.
I had visions of Paramites living in the wild, how they were before I was a child.
Paramonia is a forest, while Scrabania is a desert.
Hello.
As you journey across both places, you encounter fellow Mudokons, who will often make you perform whistling melody patterns to allow you to progress, which is pretty enchanting.
Well, until this happens.
Okay.
Sometimes if you repeat a sequence of whistles and farts to fellow Mudokons, they will grant you the ability to use spirit rings, meaning that when you chant, a spirit ring will be released and destroy all bombs and mines on that screen. This can only be used once though, meaning if you waste it, you will need to repeat the password to the Mudokon again to receive the spirit ring power.
Hello. Password.
In later stages, they thankfully forego the password aspect, and the Mudokons give the rings to you automatically. I'm assuming this is because they know who you are at this point. Although, surely the fact that I'm a Mudokon negates the need for a password in the first place?
Come on, fellas, I promise you I'm one of you. I giggle and fart just the same.
While traversing Paramonia and Scrabania, you need to use Ellum, your trusty loyal steed.
The observant of you will note that Ellum is mule backwards, and he's just about as stubborn as one.
Yeah, whenever there's honey on the screen, Ellum is easily distracted. And you'll need to subject him to a swarm of bees to get him to focus. There are occasions when you need to ride Ellum to move quickly and cross large chasms. I always felt as though these Ellum running sections were short-lived, and it seems I wasn't alone in thinking that. The new and tasty remake extends the Ellum parts, which is one of the few aspects of the remake I deem to be an improvement. Both Paramonia and Scrabania are laden with patrolling sligs and bombs. If I had to say which is harder, I'd probably say Scrabania has the edge. Although once you reach the temple, this changes for me. I personally find the Scrabanian temple more straightforward than a Paramonian one. Scrabs mostly behave rather simply. If they see you, they'll charge at you and tear you to shreds. But if two Scrabs encounter one another, they engage in battle, meaning one of them will die.
Piece of scrab cake. Sort of.
You can't possess Paramites or Scrabs in this game. Your possession ability is limited only to sligs, and, bells, I guess. As a side note, by the second game, Abe has grown powerful enough to possess these creatures. As was the case with the All-A-Year feature, I don't think this ability makes the game any easier necessarily. The puzzles once again accommodate this ability, meaning you need to possess them to progress. But I will say it makes the Paramites and Scrabs less intimidating to me. Making Abe more powerful in the sequel makes sense narratively, but forcing you to be totally powerless and to evade these creatures makes their presence all the more intimidating. Every single room in the temples is essentially a logic puzzle. Each one requires you to activate the flintlock and find the exit, and most often this also requires you to find and learn the bell song. Adding the Scrabs and Paramites into the mix with their unique behaviours means you'll need to do things in a certain order. Paramites are especially terrifying. They aren't as straightforward as Scrabs in my opinion. You see, if you approach one, it'll be quite tame. Nothing will happen. However, if you back it into a corner, it will attack. And together, they're vicious.
Alone they might be harmless, but a mighty pack of Paramites can pack a mighty punch.
Now and again, they'll descend from the ceiling with spider-like webbing, which just serves to make them creepier still.
Note, they may be spider-like, but they are not spiders, so there'll be no giant spider alert today. Hey now, don't get mad at me.
One of the worst rooms in a Paramonian temple is this one. One false move and you're a goner. In all honesty, while many people maintain that this game is tough, the developers could easily have made it tougher. They could have forced the player to memorize the bell song, but once you've learned the melody, you just need to possess the bells and Abe will repeat the melody automatically. The Paramonian Temple is also home to one of the game's most unforgiving secret areas. Here you need to distract the Paramites with meat, and move all three Mudokons closer to the bird portal one by one.
Wait. Okay.
Making sure to be quick so the meat doesn't get eaten before you return for the next Mudokon. Once you've managed to free all three of them, the game trolls you once again by triggering some falling debris as an extra hazard. Come on, man! It's definitely one of the meanest puzzles in the game.
Easy as Paramite pie. That is, not easy at all.
I think the world building here is insanely creative. Every single screen is not only necessary for the purposes of progression, but also incredibly detailed from an artistic perspective, complemented by a subdued and at times tense soundtrack. The general ambience and sound effects also help with this immersion. Put simply, everything feels the way it should. The Mudokon homeworld maintains a serene and peaceful quality, in spite of its infiltration by the Sligs. It conveys a sacred vibe, and a familiar embrace, so much so that it really does feel like home. Meanwhile, Scrabania, by contrast, is a barren wilderness, with a foreboding presence, reinforced by an ambient yet ominous soundtrack. The game's appearance may seem simplistic at first glance, but each and every scene is masterfully crafted. You can really feel the care invested from beginning to end, and considering the game's age, the cutscenes don't look bad at all. Even though it's obvious where the cutscene ends and the game begins, the transitions are really cool. It's a very immersive experience. Speaking of the artistry, this is something I feel the remake lacks. Overall, I think they did a good job recreating the game from scratch, but much of the game looks a little too glossy for me. The atmosphere isn't as impactful, not to mention that the screen-to-screen progression works much better for this game than a constantly panning camera. Much of the background detail is lost as a result, and while it's certainly not terrible, it does somewhat feel like a downgrade. I also noted that the appearance of the Mudokon Pops was altered for the remake. At first I thought, that's kinda lame, but the more I thought about it from a logical marketing perspective, this is much more appealing than some gruesome skewered Mudokon heads.
Or as I like to call it, shish kebab. Don't knock it till you tried it.
Overall though, the remake isn't quite as good. It actually kills me to say this. As far as remakes go, it's definitely commendable, but this game's level of artistry and nuance is unmatched.
While the original game is a feast for the eyes, by comparison, New and Tasty ironically lacks flavour.
We had twice the flavor.
That said, there are occasions when the background details of the original PlayStation games cause some confusion. For example, at first glance, this looked like a passageway I could roll underneath, but it turned out to be a solid wall. Considering how subtle the secret areas are in this game, it can be hard to tell what might be a hidden passageway, but I guess that's the point. These instances are very few and far between in Oddysee. It's more of an issue that I have with Abe's Exodus, as the backgrounds are often very dense and sometimes hard to distinguish. The secret areas in the Scrabanian temple aren't too hard to find in my opinion, although there's one that I've forgotten on more than one occasion, and I think it's simply because there's just one Mudokon here.
Hello, follow me. Okay.
There are 2 scrabs you have to avoid by the skin of your loincloth, not to mention a mine you need to stay clear of while climbing this ledge. While it's certainly not the worst puzzle in the game, it's a hell of a lot of excruciating effort for just one Mudokon. What the hell were you doing here? Go join your friends, you pain in the arse! After lighting all the flintlocks, you open the temple nests. These are a sort of final gauntlet, and may seem tough initially. The intense music really gets the heart racing, and with only silhouettes visible, it feels genuinely terrifying. You do have the option to scout ahead first of all to try and suss out the route, but to be honest I find it easier to just dive straight in and see what happens. Chances are you're gonna get mauled to death on your first attempt anyway. But you know what they say, practice makes perfect.
Made it out with nary a scrab. Just about.
After clearing the nests, Big Face gives Abe a scar on the back of each hand.
The 2 scars together, on the back of each hand, they could shut down Rupture Farms and restore the lost land.
And with hand scars completed, Abe can finally transform into the Shrykull.
This means you are now some kind of odd-bod god.
This ability lets you finally pass the sligs and bombs in Monsake. Which is cool, but you might be disappointed to know that this is only temporary. You then have to make your way back to Rupture Farms through the stockyards, and this is one of my least favourite parts of the game. After obtaining this spectacular power, this always feels like a major setback. There are no additional Mudokons to find here, and I personally find the puzzles to be needlessly prolonged. For example, once you've obtained some rocks, you need to pass through the laser field unscathed and detonate the mines blocking the way. Now, it is possible to detonate them all with one throw if you time it right, but sometimes you can be having an off day and wind up having to constantly travel back and forth to detonate them one by one. Every time you collect rocks here, they only ever let you carry 2 at a time, which is just needlessly stingy, come on!
Despite all of these explosives, I am most certainly not having a blast right now.
Likewise, there's another sequence later on when you need to use rocks to detonate some landmines. And they only ever give you 1 rock at a time, meaning you're constantly chased back and forth by a hungry slug as you explode them one by one. To make matters worse, because of where the sack of rocks is situated, you can't pick the rock up until you've run from the slog and come back again. It's not especially difficult, it's just a time-consuming chore.
A slog, if you will.
With the power of the Shrykull, you might be thinking the odds are finally in your favour, but oh how wrong you'd be. From this point onwards, you can only harness its power by saving a specified number of Mudokons at specific bird portals. This will grant you the ability to temporarily transform, so that you can clear some otherwise impassable sections, destroying mines and killing sligs by merely holding the L and R buttons. The Shrykull portals are very few and far between though. If you're expecting to breeze through these final levels as some kind of godlike saviour, I can understand why you'd be disappointed. But hey, this is a puzzle game after all. The game has been tough as nails so far, so why would you expect anything less? Traversing the zulags and looking for Mudokons is tough, and some are very easily missable. After clearing a room, you need to pull a lever to sound the all clear. But in Zulag 1, they trick you here. You see this electric barrier to the far left? Well, pulling the lever on the far right not only unlocks the way to Zulag 2, but it also deactivates this barrier. If you then head to the far left, you can find a lot of Mudokons waiting to be rescued along the path where you first started the game.
Sneaky stuff.
While most of the game is very intricately put together, there are occasions when it doesn't fully make sense. There are a few times when you may come across a slig, and despite his having noticed you, you can simply return to the previous screen and he'll be none the wiser. There was also one occasion during this playthrough when a slig miraculously disappeared. I mean, I'm not complaining, it made things easier for me, but it's like the game just forgot he existed. For the most part though, the detail of this game is sublime, and there are very few anomalies. As much as I think most of the game is impressively challenging, there are some instances when it feels as though the developers were merely trying to make it appear more taxing than it is. Don't get me wrong, the game is difficult, but as we've already seen in the stockyards, there are parts that aren't so much difficult as they are time-consuming. There is some parts when you possess a slig only to get shot by some other sligs. This sounds like it might pose a challenge, but the solution is merely to possess one of the other sligs. So what was the point of there being more sligs there in the first place? I guess it's to convey the illusion that they're a bigger threat than they really are, but the only purpose it serves is to prolong the game. Whenever you need to replay sections after failing, parts like this are just annoying and a relief when they're over.
Time to put your mind at rest. For good.
There is a total of 99 Mudokons to find, and some of them are tough to locate. It's extremely aggravating when you reach the end of the game having just missed one Mudokon. I'm looking at you, buddy. After freeing all the Mudokons from the zulags, we eventually reach the boardroom, where a 2-minute timer is triggered. As is the case with the temples, I find this is initially quite daunting, but it gets easier the more you familiarise yourself with the layout. There's one final Mudokon here, and rescuing him allows you to become the Shrykull to take out the Glukkons once and for all. Now, the final cutscene plays out differently depending on how many Mudokons you've managed to save. Moloch suspends Abe over a meat grinder. Now it's up to the other Mudokons to come to your aid and teleport you out of there before it's too late. But if you didn't save enough of them, the ungrateful bastards have no qualms about grinding you into a fine paste. If you manage to find and rescue enough Mudokons though, Abe is saved and heralded as the Mudokon savior in front of a huge crowd of cheering Mudokons. If you find all 99 Mudokons, you receive this special disclaimer congratulating you, followed by a movie viewer, where you can view all of the game's cutscenes, including an exclusive early unused Guardian Angel trailer, which is arguably more nightmarish than the game itself.
You need to look within if you wanna be free.
Ugh, thanks, I wasn't planning on sleeping tonight anyway. I'll agree this is a very simple reward, but it's better than no acknowledgement whatsoever. And in all honesty, the sheer relief at having liberated every last Mudokon is rewarding enough.
Wait a second, did anybody else notice that the Mudokons were all male? Somehow I don't think this race is going to last much longer anyway.
In some respects, I can understand why some may say this game is dated. There's a severe lack of leniency, and it can often be incredibly punishing by making you redo huge portions of the game over and over until you get it right. But as frustrating as it is, that's sort of the point. You need to do these things perfectly or you won't succeed. And while some aspects feel a little laborious and needlessly long-winded, for the most part this makes the game feel extremely rewarding when you do succeed. I love puzzle games, and this one is one of my favourites. If you have the patience for it, it's well worth a try. I can't tell you how good it feels to find and rescue every last Mudokon.
Nothing like the sweet smell of success. Although in this case it smells kind of, odd.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching once again. By the way, if you do the total opposite of what you're supposed to do and kill as many Mudokons as possible, you're actually rewarded with infinite grenades.
Oops.
Just so you know, I've never managed to do this myself. Not only because it would require a great deal of patience, but also because I'm not a heartless bastard. God knows these guys have suffered enough.
Oops.
Anyway, as usual, a big thank you to my patrons. The World's Address, Dragon Dog, Alex C, Upside Clown, Anthony Gallagher, 3Spooky5Me, Volico72, and Matthew Shaw. Thank you to my free patrons, Dinosaur Bites, Gabe Owners, Yusuf Samuel, Alex, Samantha Thorngate, Mike Santana, Heather McKnight, Jennifer Erzan, Jeremy Miller, Yukanai Yuko, Alma Elma, Kira Flameheart, D Snuts, Hannah Kingdon, Domino Shields, Dennis, GamerKid96, and Mood Faik. And an extra special thanks to my channel members, Turks, Jeremy Miller, Jenny Fox, Reunion, and 3Spooky5Me. Hope you enjoyed, guys. I'll see you when I see you. Well, you'll see me anyway, hopefully. Don't leave me! Bye-bye for now.
Goodbye. Follow me.